We have a lot of athletes who have been diagnosed with being on the spectrum or and specifically having autism. Um, it's just something that I hold near and dear to my heart, and I'm never going to stop doing what I can do to bring more awareness to it and inclusivity to even make a more of a community comfortable atmosphere.
Tony Snell wasn't diagnosed with autism, ASD, autism spectrum disorder, until his son was diagnosed.
We're chatting with the guys at Heritage Barbershop about all of the biggest headlines. Y'all ready to talk?
Welcome to a special edition of Heritage Sports Talk. Today, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some subject that is really meaningful and has been getting a lot of attention lately. I want to introduce my right-hand man, as always. He's always there, Mr. Tony Harvey.
Good morning, Rodney.
What's
Happy
going
to
on?
legendary Brown.
Today's guest hails from Houston, Texas. Her name is Angelica Jelly Robinson. She's a cosmetologist. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Heritage Sports Talk, Miss Jelly.
Good morning, guys. I just want to take a moment to thank you for keeping me in mind because it's very important for me to also, like you said, share mics with people and get the awareness and acceptance in as many angles as I can get it. So I really appreciate you for taking the time to have me on.
No
Really
problem.
appreciate you accepting the invitation and things like that. Like I said before we went on the air, I was really looking forward to this episode and meet you and and have this conversation.
To make this such a special one, everyone knows who the other half of the Brown brothers is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what makes this one so special. He's going to come from behind them boards today, and he's going to be a part of this conversation. Mr. Melchior J. Brown.
The
Hey,
man
what's
behind
happening?
the
Hey,
curtain.
what's happening, guys? This is crazy because this is the first time that I've had the opportunity to be on the Heritage Sports Talk show. Usually I'm, behind the scenes, and this is great. I had to be a part of this with Miss Angelica Robinson, also known as Jelly. Um, yeah, let's get it going. What's happening, Antonio and Rodney? What's up?
Hey, what's happening, Eric? I'm really glad that this is your first time you been in front of the mic with us. You are our executive director. Let's everybody know that you do all the editing and
Thank you.
putting together the program, making sure we're sharp and looking good and everything. And now you come to the forefront.
Well, thank you,
Well,
thank
let's
you,
do it.
and I hope I do as well as you guys have been doing, man, for this past 7 to 8 months. Um, yeah, let's get started, y'all. Let's make this happen.
Let's go. All right. So we're going to talk about autism. Autism is also known as autism spectrum disorder. It's a neurological development disorder characterized by differences or difficulties in social communities and interaction. A performance for predictability and routine, sensory processing differences, focuses, interests, and repetitive behaviors. Miss Angelica, I know this is close to your heart and close to everything that you do in the industry. Could you introduce yourself and explain who you are and what it is that you do?
So I'm Jelly Robinson. I'm originally from Ohio, born to two parents that are also hairstylists. And then I made my way to Houston, Texas about 11 years ago. And I am a child hair care specialist for children on the autism spectrum and other disabilities or different abilities.
Can you talk about your journey into becoming a cosmetologist and how you became of this lane that you're in right now?
So, briefly, if I could give you the back end of it, I shared my parents are hairstylists, so I'm a shop baby. So, I grew up in the shop trying to get some braids in or do some ponytails for some of the kids that may have been in that salon space, and so I always really gravitated toward the children, toward the kids. And so fast forward into cosmetology school, once I made my way to the studio floor, nobody wanted to do the kids. And At that time, I had a clientele that was based of a lot of interracial children. So
Hmm.
they had a hair type that one of their parents was not comfortable with. So even if at that time I didn't know if it was related to autism, there were some sensitivities that needed to be met with a certain kindness and gentleness. And so it kind of started on that studio floor for me, working with the kids who had a hard time. And so I get licensed, I get the opportunity to move to Houston. And one of the first jobs I had was working at Snippets Haircuts for Kids. And so the onboarding process and the training process included a 1 hour module through Autism Speaks. So I took the module and I was very interested because I didn't know much about autism or disabilities. I mean, obviously I had seen and met people with disabilities, but I didn't know anything about it. But they gave me this little puzzle piece pendant to put on my apron and they told me that I was certified. And it was just something about that I mean, I just spiraled into being so inquisitive that I almost became obsessed with what autism was and what that meant for hair care. Because 1 hour was nowhere near enough information for for me to feel prepared or have the tools that I needed on the floor to service somebody that had autism. So that's kind of like how I got gateway into the introduction of autism matched with hairstyling.
Okay, and you said Autism Speak as a module. Is that module still available now? That maybe we can
It
share.
may be. It may be, but I do have some reservations
Okay,
because in the beginning I was given a 1 hour module. I was told that I was certified and it left me with so many questions and uncertainty. So at this point, I would love to share with you some other available resources that will give stylists and barbers the tools that they need so they don't feel like, okay, after 1 hour, then what?
right, correct. Because
Definitely. Now,
there's a lot more to it.
I just brought that up to Jelly, and I do want you to, to share that information with us. Autism Speak, a large advocacy organization focused on the awareness, research, and advocacy of autism. They have influenced research funding and provide community service. The organization has faced some criticism. So your reservation that you have with this organization is really critical. So we'll get into that later on. But we do want you to, to share those type of information because you're the one that we depend on, with that experience and things like
For
that.
sure.
And I also do want to note that 1 in 36 children have autism in the United States, and that information came from Howard University, which is a HBCU school in Washington D.C.
Have you witnessed or partaken in any unique challenges while working with this population?
Of course. I mean, from my perspective, every single day I'm presented with a different set of challenges because this is not like a typical day at the shop where you know what to expect. If you've been cutting little Johnny's hair when his dad comes in, you know what to expect of it. Autism comes with daily challenges. So no matter how long I've been working with a client or how much rapport I have with a client, that's going to change session over session.
Is there anything special that anyone uh, would have to do to create such a like calming environment, or is it one particular way that you said it, or and you just kind of stated yourself that each session is different? Um, can you give an example?
There's a general way that I like to go about business that is consistent along every single client. So before I meet a new client, there's some preliminary information that I need in order to prepare myself for the service. So I want to know, a little bit about the child. What is their special interest? What do they like to watch on TV? If they have safe foods, what are their go-to snacks? But I also want to know about the previous experiences because that's going to set up what their haircut history looks like. Preferably, I'd love to get them before they ever had a haircut so that I'm more so on the side of creating as many positive associations with haircuts as possible. But unfortunately, that's not the case. If a family finds me, is because they've exhausted all possibilities of someone that can tolerate what comes with the challenges of their child. So just by me asking them the preliminary information, there's already a sense of security that is being built because I'm inquiring what the needs are. And I want that to be a basis for them to be as honest with me as possible about their previous experiences so that I can try to create those positive associations moving forward. So when I get that information, I'm gonna I'm gonna know what to bring to the appointment and what not to bring to the appointment. I'll give you an example. If I have a family who says that their child is like extremely terrified of clippers, they don't know how we might get the haircut done. I know that none of those items should be on display and that there should be a way for me to do a reintroduction process to these tools prior to ever getting into the haircut itself. So I may have all my clippers, all my shears, everything put away. And that's a great opportunity for me to introduce like a hair cutting kit where we use maybe 5 or 10 minutes of the beginning of that service on a play therapy type of theme, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Marisha or Tony, you guys have any?
You have a different approach there, Jelly. I'm digging on that too because you're trying to gather as much information that you can, about your clients and the client's parents, before you sit those children into the chair. Uh, how is the community responding to your approaches, philosophical? Because you're trying to make them as comfortable as much as possible, uh, and let them know, hey, you're a human being, and you're treating these people with respect as a human being as well. How has the community and the parents been responding to that? Because what I'm hearing right there is like, I want you to cut my children here, do my children here. Angelica Robinson, that's the person I want to work. So I just want to know how the community respond to your therapy.
Well, the thing about the special needs community, I can say almost as a whole, is the word of mouth that comes from a special needs family is more valuable than any dollar because it's like the gift that keeps on giving. If they have that experience with you, they will talk about it in all of their affairs. Unfortunately, the reality is because they have been treated poorly or because they've been turned away or just had traumatic experiences, a regular act of kindness seems like astronomical to them. You know, I'm not throwing in any extra kindness. I'm just treating somebody how I would want them to treat me if I had a hard time with something. But to answer the question, the support that comes from the special needs community is invaluable. I can't explain the amount of support. I mean, I wouldn't be here talking to y'all if it wasn't for a special needs family that told somebody that told somebody. And to this day, somebody is still telling the next person that I am creating an experience that can be implemented in other salons across the country, essentially. And hopefully one day globally we can implement these techniques, these methods, so that more salon spaces will adapt to that inclusive idea.
You seem to have, based on your profession, able to infuse these, to implement, your strategies as far as working with kids and making sure that you're giving good quality hair care services. Am I correct on that too? Because
You're
it seems
correct.
like there's there's two
Yeah,
things
and
that's like going on here. Go ahead.
no, I was just wondering. Okay, so I know you were saying that it is word of mouth. Are there other techniques and other ways that people are finding you that may have children that's on the spectrum?
So I have Instagram right now is the largest following that I have. A lot of people come from Instagram. Some people find me from Google. I've had other interviews here locally in Houston. So some people find me from the news. Um, but all social media outlets bring people closest to me because if somebody sees a video that they can relate to or they know somebody that may need that level of support, the best part about it for me is that I'm able to support some people from afar because sometimes these techniques can translate visually and somebody can watch a video enough times just to try to implement them And I've gotten some amazing stories about how just the videos alone have helped them incorporate more inclusive techniques and strategies.
What are some of the techniques that you use when approaching a child? I know you were saying that, you know, sometimes you put the clippers and the shears away. We do know that it is a sensory issue with some of the people that are on the spectrum. So, what are some of the techniques that you use?
So, probably the most popular technique that I use that I've gotten some amazing results with are going to be massages. Um, at some point, you know, I talked to you guys a little bit about the play therapy, but at some point, we got to get into it. You know, the goal is not to avoid the things that we're afraid of, but to find a way to overcome our fear in a safe way. And so when it comes down to, and I wish I would have had my clippers here because I would have been able to give you guys more of a visual on this. But okay, so I have my clipper in one hand, and I may just start out with a simple tap. Now that preliminary information that I got is gonna let me know, does my client like numbers? Does my client like letters? So I may say, we're gonna tap. Can you say A, B, C? Can we say one, two, three? I don't want you to hold it. I'm not gonna put it on your body. I just want to introduce you to the sensation of it. So the idea of getting a tap, I'm one step closer to getting a hold. Now, once I get that hold, once I say, "Hey, can you hold that for me?" And they may feel uncomfortable at first, but it comes across as a simple favor instead of a demand. Could you hold that for me? Passing it along. So we went from being afraid of it, clippers being out of sight, to now we can visualize it. Now we can tap it. Now we can hold it. Now, from that holding, I'm going to introduce massages to their body. I'm going to use the same technique. If we're using numbers, we'll use numbers. If we're using letters, we'll use letters. And we'll go A, B, C, D, E, F, G until I can make my way up to the ear so they can hear the sensation. These are all the steps that go into just getting it to touch the head, not actually removing any hair from the head. But massages has probably been my most useful tool, and it translates very well. So that's probably my number one is the massages.
Wow, wow, wow. That's amazing.
Do
I
you
like
share these strategies and approaches with other barbers and cosmetologists as the one you just explained, Jelly?
I have. And exciting news. I just became a part of a group called the Sensory Society. So it's me and right now maybe 35 other stylists nationwide. We had our first Sensory Society meeting on Zoom last week on Thursday, and we're all just diving head in, sharing techniques, sharing the methods, sharing what worked for them, tools, sensory gadgets, and things of that sort. But the next step for me is I created a curriculum called the Sensory Code, and it's broken down into 3 modules. It's going to talk a lot about that pre-information that you need, the techniques that you'll need when you're in service leading up to the actual main event, and the post care that you'll need not only for the family, but you have to consider yourself and the emotional obligation that goes into these types of services.
Okay. So, how do you involve parents and caregivers in the haircutting process?
There are many ways that parents can be involved. So one way is I do assign homework. So depending on the frequency in which I see a client, I may need parents to kind of pick up where I left off in my absence and to set me up for my next visit. So just like we talked about those massages, I will demonstrate those massages in service for the family. And then I'll say, okay, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I just want you to set a timer for 1 minute, see how much of those massages we're tolerating, and then we're going to increase that number as the toleration level builds. The idea is to phase the parent out of the service. You know, most of the parents are having to hold the child and provide any amount of comfort that is needed during the service, which I'm completely okay with. But most of these parents, ideally they want to be able to go to the shop, and when they call little Johnny can go sit in the chair where they don't have any obligations throughout the actual service. So, because I know the demand that comes with their daily challenges, I do try to implement as much of that one on one service as I can with them so that mom doesn't feel like this is another thing that, or dad. I work with most moms, so that's why I reference moms a lot, but parents, so they can have something where they can kind of just sit back and watch somebody else work with the child. But I can say, I assign homework and any ways that they can provide that comfort during the service, I allow that to happen.
I do want to go back to the curriculum that you're building. When will that be available? And
Oh, go
how
ahead.
and yeah, when will that be available? And how did you come about creating the curriculum?
So a lot of people will reach out and tell me that through just like a 3-minute reel on Instagram, they learned so much. And it was like, okay, well, I have a whole lot to share. So I hired some consultants that had a background in the neurological field. Some of them had worked closely with people with autism. And we forked out this curriculum. I kind of told them the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to include. And also, the idea was that for anybody that went through this training or read the course, would not feel left without solution. I didn't want them to just feel like they had an idea of what servicing children with autism in a salon environment looked like. I wanted them to actually say, have something tangible to say, okay, I could try this. So I'm going through some, getting last minute supplementary material that I need, and I still need to get through publishing. And once that is done, my ultimate goal is to have training available by fall of this year.
How can people get in contact with that group?
Okay, so we just recently, well, Ronnie is her name. She's the one that's kind of fronting everything on this on the back end. So her name is Ronnie V Cuts on Instagram. So Ronnie, she just created the Sensory Society Instagram page. It's a baby. It just got started maybe a couple of days ago. But the 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 tag on that is sensory underscore society. In the meantime, after we get off of this call, I'll directly add you to the group so you won't have to go through any hoops. On my page, I do have in my highlights, there's a flyer that talks about the Sensory Society. And every day I've been sharing it, trying to build some traction so people can come and join the group.
Marshall and his brother, we've been having these discussions about men's mental health and, trying to reach out and help everybody. I can see as you guys in your profession in the industry, y'all trying to help out each other as much as possible too. So thank you for that. Yes, we are talking to Angelica Robinson. We are having a conversation about autism folks. And like we said, we're digging in deep. And we want to thank you again for joining us. Let's keep this conversation going. Um, I've just put up some more data, and it indicates that autism prevalence is higher among Black, Asian, Pacific Islanders, and Hispanic children compared to white children. That's one thing. As far as delayed diagnosis, despite the increased prevalence, Black children are often diagnosed later than white counterpart, sometimes 3 or more years after their parents first expressed concerns. The right reason why I brought that up because Jelly, have you ever had a client that hadn't been a young person too that hadn't been diagnosed with autism, but you probably can detect some of the symptoms that might occur in that child or anything like that? Has that ever have you ever had that experience?
Absolutely. I just had an experience just a couple of weeks ago. I was working with a little baby, um, and I fell in love with him. It was just the people around him didn't quite understand him. And like a common misconception is when a child speaks, if they don't have any type of speech delay, or they know or they have shown that they can follow an instruction, then a lot of times their sensory sensitivities in other areas are disregarded. So I do see that, but that was my most recent experience, so it made me think of him.
Sorry.
Were you able to share with the parents that, hey, maybe you should you know pay attention a little bit more to, some of these things that's happening with your child, or, because sometimes, people don't want to open up, or they know something is wrong and they don't know what direction to go. Has you been, placed in that situation?
So I have been placed in that situation, Tony, but that is very tricky because one thing is we are not doctors. So at most, you do not want to insinuate a disorder. You do not want to insinuate a condition. But if I have genuine concerns and the person that I'm servicing is also showing those concerns, I always just recommend they get a diagnosis, or I recommend that they talk to their doctor about the concerns that they're seeing. But it's such a thin line of you stepping on someone's toes or offending them, because I'm not a doctor. And it doesn't matter how many attributes or characteristics look like autism, it very much so might not be. So that's a tricky one.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because as a journalist, we have some limitations, restrictions as far as talking about people medical background unless they share it with us. Some of them
Right.
they'll share it with us, but they don't want us, to report it back out. So we have to be very careful in those situations as well. So I'm just telling you from my perspective, as far as reporting. I do want to thank you for sharing that part with the audience too, because you don't want to, the crowd, the parent or the child himself, and put them in a situation where they can, you know, go hide somewhere and not get help that they need.
I've seen barbers in the shop that be like, "Oh, this child is unruly," right? And it's like, wait a minute, there may be a sensory piece that's happening when the clippers is close to his ears, or the vibration of the clippers is touching his scalp. Do you have any advice for barbers out there that may run into something like that?
So there's always going to be like a preview. So that preview is going to be, what do you observe before you put the client in the chair? And this is not in all cases. Some of these are generalized, but special interest. If you might have that one client that always comes in with those two cars and he can't do nothing without those two cars, that may be an indication. Language. If this child is not particularly verbal, that could also be a sign. If you're seeing repetitive physical movements, stimming, flapping of the hands, jumping up and down, that may also be an indicator. These are not one size all fits all situations, but those could be indicators of knowing that you need to take it a step back. And this doesn't just apply to children on the spectrum. Sometimes kids are just afraid of haircuts in general. So I think that when going into appointments with kids, we just need to already pack a little bit of extra patience for the day.
What kind of advice do you have for them that come across just children in general? Not just one specific, but in general. What's the advice would you have for them as an
This
approach?
is kind of a loaded question, so I want y'all to follow me because this is genuinely how I will probably answer a situation like that. I'm gonna pull myself into it. So just last week, I learned how to fish for the first time, and I was really afraid to put the worm on the hook, and I was afraid to take the fish off the line. But I had some amazing teachers, and they were so patient with me that throughout that, I was like, wow, I wonder if that's how my clients feel when they going into something afraid. So I will put this into the perspective of the new stylist of something that they either are afraid of or have been afraid of, and tell them that, you always have that 85-15 rule where people come back to you or they consider your work to be great based off of the way you make them feel and not necessarily the technicality of the service or the haircut. So I will want to take that stylist to a space where they can remember when they were afraid of something and how they would want somebody to work them through overcoming that fear. And that could apply to anything, but most importantly, in a haircut environment.
Do you do house calls? And also, do you have your own a business, or where people can come see you at a
So I
studio?
own my own business. I own a mobile studio. So I have a box truck that's converted into a salon, and I travel mainly residentially and within ABA facilities is where most of my work takes place. Right now, I'm running a full ship and I have a long waiting list. But if anybody is looking to reach out to me, they can always visit my Instagram page, Jelly Robinson. There's going to be a tab there for the Sensory Society. So if they're interested in the community aspect of it, they can join the Sensory Society, where I'm not the only resource. We have resources from all over the nation that are willing to have tough conversations, are willing to, provide solutions, techniques, and all of those things as a unit, where it's not just hearing from me, but there's also a tab in my highlights for the waiting list. So if anybody is interested in getting on the waiting list for services in the future, then that's a good way to do it. My email address as well, peace and love studios junior at gmail.com, is always a place if you have questions, just something really quick, but not necessarily looking to get a haircut right away. Then I'm most responsive that via email.
All right.
Well, there you have it. We're getting a great lesson in Black women entrepreneurship here too, as
Yes.
well. I love to
Yes.
hear
Yes.
things like that. I do want to address one other thing you mentioned early up in your presentation about autism speak, which I pulled that information up there. Then maybe they got some issues going there. Is there any other foundations or institutions that you would suggest that are provide quality service,
So
Jelly?
right now, probably the number one is gonna be Sensory Solutions. I don't know if you guys heard of the Weighted Cape guy. His name is Henry. He's out of Dallas, and he founded the Weighted Cape. And he's doing so many amazing things. He didn't initially intend for the weighted cape to be used for the special needs community, but the special needs community loves him and loves the cape and the idea behind it. So he took a sensory solutions course. And he said that it was like life changing. So right now, I think that might be the leading space for getting your feet wet on sensory services and how to make your salon space more inclusive. I would roll with Sensory Solutions
Yeah, I did
Thank you.
see.
until we
Uh-huh.
have the sensory code.
Okay, got you. I did get a chance to see that weighted cape. People have been sharing it. Um,
Yes,
I'm definitely going to order one
order you
because
one.
yes, yes, amazing. You guys, you're doing some dope things out there in
Right.
Houston, and I just want to send love your way. And it's much appreciated. Don't think that what you're doing is just a small piece of something that's happening in just Houston. This is spreading. I've noticed you online. That's how I reached out to you to connect with you.
Right.
So this is something that definitely needs to be shared throughout the nation, throughout the world. And I really want to give you a big ups for stepping out and specializing in working with children that are on the spectrum.
I appreciate you guys for having me.
If there's anything else that we can do, we definitely love to have you back on this show to talk about some other things and about your businesses. Uh, please do, because this is something that we need to continue to talk about, without a
Bring me
doubt.
back, y'all. Bring me back
Yes,
because
ma'am.
I'm gonna get past back to school season, and I'm gonna give myself a little sweet. I just actually put it out there. I was just thinking about all these things. I was just in visionary mode. And I'm like, I need to go ahead and get a space. I love my mobile salon and that's my baby. But I was like, I need to get me a space where I'm stationary. I'm not driving around Houston as often, where I can just use my truck to go to the clients who need that phase one, where they need it at the house. They need it where they're familiar with. But I'm aiming forward most definitely after we get through back to school season, going ahead and signing that lease. I still got a few more tours to go on, but I created a wish list of all the things that I'm going to need for the shop. I kid y'all not. Yesterday it looked like Santa Claus came to town. So many people poured into me and sent me some things that I needed for the shop. So that's gonna be my next
Yes.
endeavor. I may not even make
Yes.
it through back to school season. This may definitely happen mid August. So bring me back so I can talk to y'all about that because that space is going to duel as a training spot. I can have people shadow me without them having
I
to follow
love
me
that.
all around Houston.
I love that. I love that. And it'll give you more time as well, right? Because I can
Right.
only imagine what it's like to travel because I've done mobile barbering, right? And to travel from one place to another, you may be able to hit up maybe 5 to 8 different places, and that's a day, right?
Right.
What is the average time for a haircut? And I know that it probably varies.
It varies, but generally it's 45 minutes to an hour or up to their toleration level. So 45 minutes is always a good time frame. If we taking longer breaks or we're playing a little bit more in between, then we can push it up to an hour, but not much productive happens past an hour. But if my client is letting me know, hey, I ain't got it today, and I didn't have the option to cancel this appointment, I don't want to push it too much past that. I want to keep the rapport positive and I want to make friends with my clients. So I want them to want to see me come back and not be the person that forced them into doing something that they're definitely afraid of. So 45 minutes to 1 hour is a sweet spot for sensory services for me.
Okay, I have a question then.
What's up?
So say you make it out to the appointment
Hmm.
and you're not able to uh take care of the haircut. Do you still charge for that time or do you say, okay, I'll take somewhat of a deposit because we didn't complete the haircut, but I did make it out and it is part of my time.
So typically, if we can't make the haircut happen, we turn it into a tolerance session. So that may
Okay.
mean 45 minutes worth of massages,
Right,
but we're
right.
working on something and I'm
Okay.
spending time with them. If
Yes,
it's a complete no, then I got to charge a cancellation fee because I don't have time to put anybody to replace that appointment
that
and I
makes sense.
go to them. So I do have a same day cancellation in place, but my primary goal is always to spend some time with that client. I don't just say, "Oh, little Johnny is crying. I'll see you next month." It's like, okay, well, what can we do to bring this down to a common ground? Should I stay and have lunch with you? Do you want to watch your favorite show? And somewhere in there incorporate some of the techniques that we need to be working on, but just introducing them at a much slower way.
Jelly,
Absolutely.
anything that you would like to leave us with?
No, I think that was it. Just thank you for allowing me to occupy some space in this room to yet again use my voice for those who cannot use their own.
That was
Wow,
Peace and
that's a
Love
dope
Studios.
ending.
That's the name. That's Peace and Love Studio Jelly. I like that.
Yeah, I do
Peace and
too. I
Love
was like,
Studio.
"Oh man, that's perfect." We really appreciate you taking your time to just sit up and vibe with us. We definitely have to have you back.
We will
Keep
have
doing
you
what
back.
you're doing. Much love to you. I definitely look. Give us some information. I'm gonna put your information along with everything so other people can donate as well.
Okay.
Let's get that happening out there in Houston. I've been saying I gotta make it out there to Houston. Now you're another reason why I gotta
Come
make it out
see
there,
me. Come
right?
see
And
me.
I can come and rock with you for a little bit. Peace and love, as in your name, right?
Right.
Keep it going. Let's make this, let's normalize it, right?
Let's
Because
normalize it.
everybody should have the opportunity to be groomed in
Right.
some sort of way. And I know that a lot of people have problems because it's hard for their child to either sit inside that barbershop. And so to be able to share that, and we know that haircuts make a person feel better, look better, and do better. So thank you once again.
You.
This was great.
I
Hey,
needed.
so
I appreciate y'all.